Hi, this is Larry Dillon. Welcome to our webinar today on making sales goals. Thank you for participating. We have a series of webinars on the sales process coming up. Any comments or suggestions that you have, feel free to reach out to me at larry@InsightPRM.com. We welcome all of your suggestions and comments. And I'm the CEO of InsightPRM, MoveMyBiz.com, and Wendover, and our passion in life is helping customers achieve their sales goals. So let's talk about today's agenda. We're going to talk about why sales reps don't meet their sales objectives. We're going to talk about the challenges that sales reps are facing and what's preventing them from achieving those goals. And we're going to go through the sales formula, which we developed about almost 30 years ago and has helped many companies sort of get to the next level. And we're going to talk about time management, which is really essential today. So why is it that sales reps can't make goals this year? There's some astounding figures out there. 50% of sales reps will not make goal this year, according to publications like Selling Power Magazine, and a number of other research organizations are reporting that sales reps will not make goal this year. In fact, our survey of businesses has similar indication. The number one reason why sales reps fail to achieve their sales goal is because they fail to set enough appointments. It's really that simple. Often we don't see sales reps struggle with their closing ratio or their average sale. They typically just don't set enough appointments. They just don't get enough at-bats. When you look at the tasks that sales reps have to deal with on a weekly or monthly basis, it is quite staggering. They've got to do prospecting, manage prospects, set appointments, customer visits. They've got to go out and check out what the customer's needs are, deliver a proposal. So there's a lot of different things that sales reps have to do other than setting appointments, which actually comes from prospecting. And it's very difficult for them to manage their time. For example, let's say they allocated 4 hours in the afternoon devoted to prospecting, and they sit down and they're ready to start prospecting, and they get a phone call from one of their biggest prospects that they have a proposal out to, and the prospect says, "We need you in our office this afternoon to make some adjustments to the proposal, and then we'd like to get started with you." Well, no sales rep in their right mind is going to say, "Well, I'd like to come out, but I've really scheduled myself to spend a couple hours prospecting, so I'm going to have to pass on that." So these are the kinds of decisions that sales reps have to make. And of course, the first thing to give in that time management process is prospecting. And the reason that that's important is because prospecting is the process of converting leads to appointments. And appointments is what we need to set in order to get more deals. So it's sort of a vicious cycle that sales reps sort of have to deal with almost on a daily basis of making those decisions. And it just makes it really difficult. The other problem is that prospecting has often been called a painful process. Nobody likes to do it. It's time consuming. You have to deal with a lot of rejection. Many sales reps who are actually very good at selling and closing are really not good at prospecting, and they'll be the first to tell you. And I always use the analogy that in baseball, often the best pitchers have the worst batting average. And it is a different skill set that's required for appointment setting or converting leads into appointments as it is for closing deals. First thing that I think we need to do is to sort of take a step backwards if we're looking at helping our sales reps achieve their goals. And if we know that the number one reason that they haven't achieved their goals is because they haven't set enough appointments for themselves. And prospecting is that process of converting leads into appointments. Is that, do you have a process in place for consistently converting leads into appointments? We do a business survey each year, and we ask companies to grade themselves on a number of things relative to sales. Ask them on a scale of 1 to 100, 100 being excellent, are you satisfied with your closing ratio? Average score is in the 90s. Your ability to present your product clearly, score is in the 90s. Ask 100 business owners, sales managers, salespeople their ability to consistently convert leads into appointments, and you'll find that the average score this year, last year, and the year before is 59 out of 100, the only failing grade. And again, no wonder companies are having difficulty meeting their goals when the core method for generating business, which is setting appointments, they've given themselves a failing grade. So we really need to look at, do we have a process in place for converting leads into appointments? And that's going to start with, what's your strategy? And your strategy really needs to take into consideration the size, the type of opportunities that you're going for, the sales cycle, and a number of different things that's going to help you put together a prospecting process. You want to make sure that your strategy includes some way to measure the results so that you're consistently improving your ability to convert leads into appointments. The other thing you need to consider is lead acquisition. How are you going to get your leads? Just leaving it up to the sales reps is it's a strategy, but maybe it's not the best strategy. Are you going to purchase leads? Are you going to do email campaigns? What type of marketing are you going to do to generate leads on a consistent basis so that your sales reps can have a more consistent flow of appointments? And then specifically, how do you plan to convert leads into appointments? I'm always astounded by the variance in companies' abilities to convert leads into appointments. We'll sell 100 leads to a couple of companies in the same business, in the same geography, at the same time. And if we sell those leads to, say, 3 or 4 companies, we'll find that one company doesn't get anything, and yet another company consistently, quarter after quarter, list after list, will convert 25 to 30% of those appointments into deals. So the difference between converting 0 and converting 30% of leads into appointments is a huge variance. And that's across the board, all different industries, different geography, different size organizations. But it really is astounding. Companies, some companies that are really good at it and other companies that really struggle with it. Lead nurturing program, we're going to talk about later on, that basically 2/3 of all the leads that you buy, that come to your website, that you get from email campaigns or marketing, really need to be nurtured. Yet most companies don't have a lead nurturing program, and will actually, the way that they're set up, will actually ignore these types of opportunities. And let me explain this by analogy. Let's say that you go to a car dealership to check out the new models because you're probably going to buy a new car in a couple of months. We've all been there. You walk into the dealership, you just want to kind of look around, sort of kick the tires. What happens when you walk into the dealership? You're attacked by the sales reps, and what do? They want to immediately sell you a car. Well, what do you say to the salesperson? You basically brush them off and say, no, I'm not going to be buying a car, I'm just looking around. And most sales reps will then ignore you. When you just want basically some information. And that's often what happens in business to business. Companies are basically looking to gather some information, and sales reps want to attack them and get the appointment. So it's important to understand that almost twice as many of the leads that you get from whatever methodology really want to be nurtured versus sold immediately. So for prospecting, the problem, again, in meeting goals is not setting enough appointments, failure to set enough appointments. And the problems that we have is that sales reps have less time to prospect. They're setting less appointments. And the other thing is that the basic resource for converting leads to appointments is dials. It takes dials to get people on the phone. It's just a fact of life. You can't just pick up the phone and expect a prospect to call you right back. They don't have to. They don't have any obligation. Yet, many sales reps and sales managers are confused when a lead doesn't call them back. Well, the problem is the person who is buying, let's say you're selling computer hardware, and somebody's going to buy 5 new servers and 100 PCs and network equipment. They don't have to call you back. They don't work for you. They don't have to follow your rules. They don't have to be honest. They don't have to be nice. They're the prospect. They can do whatever they want. And in fact, that's what they do. I'll give you an example. We got a lead near the end of last year. Large company. Looked like a great opportunity. Immediately called the lead and sent them an email. Actually called the lead twice in the first day. I called the lead every day for about 5 days after that. Sent a couple emails, no response. Kept following up, couple dials a week. After 17 attempts, I finally got the prospect on the phone. Now, most companies wouldn't do that. In fact, all of my competitors gave up. So when I finally did get in touch with the prospect, he said, hey, listen, thank you very much for trying to stay in touch with me. I had reached out to a couple of companies just before I left on vacation. I got really busy. I went on vacation. I came back. I was really busy. You're the most professional and persistent sales rep I've ever met. My situation is that I've got some money left in my budget. I have to spend it or lose it by the end of the year. This is your lucky day. We're going to make a deal. And I'm not the only person that's happened to. We often hear similar stories from our customers. So sometimes it takes a number of dials and persistence to get that prospect on the phone because they're busy. And they, again, are in the driver's seat. They don't have to return the phone call. Just because they didn't return the call after 5 or 10 or 15 attempts does not mean that they're not interested. So the dials are really important. Remember, telemarketing, prospecting are still very, very powerful tools. The challenge is that we often use CRMs to make the dials, record the calls, and there's a lot of research out there that indicates that it could take as much as 48 minutes, maybe 58 minutes to make 10 dials. In fact, I was talking to the inside sales manager of a Fortune 500 company, and their sales reps, all they're supposed to do is make dials. Their inside sales team, they only make 50 to 60 dials per day. Now, CRMs are great for managing customers. CRM stands for Customer Relationship Management. Maybe not the best tool for prospecting or making dials. You should be aware that there's a whole new breed of software out there specifically designed to help with the prospecting or cold calling process. They're very different than CRMs. Some of them call themselves CRMs or a fast CRM. We have one, but again, there's about 12 other companies out there that you should check out. They're much, much faster than 48 minutes to make 10 dials. Prospecting is often called a painful process. It's a lot of rejection, a lot of follow-up, a lot of nitty-gritty due diligence that needs to be done. So, for example, every time I make a phone call in a CRM, I might have to make 15, 30 clicks and take a couple of minutes to record a call. I've got to make a note that I've left a voicemail every time I leave a voicemail, the date, the time, who I left the voicemail for. I got to go to another screen and I've got to schedule a follow-up, so I make sure to follow up with that company again. And then maybe I want to send an email, and then that's got to be taken off the list and so forth. So it's a painful process, and often the technology can make it even more painful. So to review, failure to set enough appointments clearly, quite simply, is the number one reason that sales reps fail to make quota or goal. You got to get a process in place for lead conversion. You have to monitor that, measure that, and constantly try to improve that. Think of my analogy of I humbly witness. We deal with thousands of companies, and the difference between the low people on the totem pole and the high people on the totem pole is millions and millions of dollars worth of business a year. Are you using the wrong technology? Are you sort of forcing your sales team to play golf with a stick? Do they have the right tool? And are they managing their time properly? Prospecting really requires a lot of time management because it's easily pushed to the wayside, and then time slips by, and at the end of the year, you haven't set enough appointments. So let's dig a little deeper. I'm going to share with you a sales formula that I shared with AT&T years ago that actually set my whole career in high gear. So we figured this out, that sales, let's say for a sales rep over the course of a year, can be exactly defined with the following formula. It's equal to the activity level. How many appointments, net new appointments, did that sales rep go out on over the course of a year? It's either 25, 50, 100, 150, maybe 200. What's their average closing ratio? Out of those 100 appointments that they went out on last year, did they either close 25 or 31 or 27? That's the closing ratio. And what was the average sale? Often people say, and I crack up, we don't have an average sale, Larry. Some of the deals are higher and some are lower. Interesting. But everyone has an exact average sale. So in other words, last year, if you sold $2 million worth of business to 100 customers, your average sale would be $20,000. So this is it. This is exactly what describes companies or salesperson's sales over the course of the year. Now, this is a really powerful tool, and I'll show you why. If you look at the average sale, that's a hard thing to double. If the average sale in your industry, let's say, is a $20,000 deal, it may be difficult to take that average sale up to $40,000 to try to double their sales. It's something that you want to look at, but there's obviously limitations with how high that can go. Typically, that's either optimized or it's not. Now, some sales reps are really good at going after very, very large deals, and that's their part of their strategy. But not every sales rep can do that. So let's see, can we increase closing ratio? Well, I would suggest that if you have a 25 to 35% closing ratio, again, for you to increase that by 20, 50, or 100% is going to be very difficult. It takes a lot of work and effort to increase somebody's closing ratio. And then, of course, once that gets optimized at, say, 37% or 40%, it gets more and more difficult to increase your closing ratio beyond that point. Activity level is often where we see people have the most room for improvement. The beauty of this formula is that it clearly shows if I increase activity level by, say, 20%, and I keep all of these items the same, average sale and closing ratio, I'm going to increase the sales rep's total sales by 20% without going through the pain and difficulties of increasing closing ratio or average sale. So let's see how this might work. So let's say we have a sales rep who last year went on 100 appointments that came due. And let's say that he closed or she closed 30% of those deals, or about 30 deals, at $25,000 a piece. That's about 8.3 appointments a month, 100 appointments a year. And her sales were obviously $750,000 for the year. Now, let's say we have a goal that we want to take this person to, say, $1 million a year. Well, with the same closing ratio, notice we've kept the closing ratio the same, and the same average deal, what type of activity do we need to have in order to achieve that $1 million in sales? The answer is about 134. So with 134 appointments, you're going to close roughly 40 deals, which is going to give you $1,005,000 worth of business for that sales rep. So we're taking them from $750,000 to $1 million, which is a 33% increase in sales. And notice what we have to do to achieve that. Last year, let's say, this person had an average of 8.3 appointments per month. And by simply setting a goal of a little less than 3 additional appointments per month, we're going to significantly increase that person's sales. And so by setting a clear goal and sitting down with the sales rep and say, hey, how would you like a 30% increase in your salary or your commissions? All we need to do is to get an extra 3 appointments a month. It's really that simple. This works. I've shared this formula with various companies over the last 30 years, and the feedback. One company was doing about $1 million or so in business, netting 5%. And by utilizing this formula and setting exact monthly goals for the number of appointments, They were in the IT services business. They went to $6 million a year with 38% net profit. And this formula was one of the things that helped them guide them to that unbelievable success. So now let's dig even a little deeper into this process now that we've got these numbers. And the beauty of this is that there's no wiggle room on this. Sales is equal to activity level times closing ratio times average sale. And as long as closing ratio and average sale are optimized, the only way to increase sales is by more appointments. This is some research by the Yankee Group, which basically says that 25% of the leads from your website, from your email campaigns, from your marketing are really sales ready. In other words, they're ready to talk to a salesperson. An astounding 50% need to be nurtured. Now that's interesting because quite often we talk to companies that say, well, I can't use leads that are not interested for another 4 or 5 or 6 months. They literally ignore 2/3 of the viable leads that come to them. And the smart companies, we've done business with about 10,000 different companies around the world, and there's about 100 rock stars. And my humble observation is that the rock stars, the most successful, most profitable companies that I've seen, have a process in place to nurture the leads and actually really like these leads much better than the leads that are sales ready. It's interesting. Humble observation. And the beauty is that most companies really want these sales ready leads, which is funny to me. About 25% of leads from your website, from any type of email campaign, pretty much are not a fit for your company. Now let's put this all into perspective. If it takes 6 attempts to get a prospect to respond, now remember my case where it took 17 attempts, but let's say it takes 6 attempts on average to get a prospect to respond. That means it takes 60 dials to reach 100 prospects. Now remember, that could be 60, it could be 100 dials. That means out of those 10 prospects that you reach from the 60 dials, 2.5 are sales ready, 5 need to be nurtured, and 2.5 are not a fit. So this almost gets us to their 4.3 weeks in a month, and 2.5 times 4.3 nearly gets us to that mark of 11 appointments per month. So we're talking about 60 dials. Now obviously you can't make those 60 dials in a row. That would be spread out, say, over a week period of time. A week's period of time. So 60 dials could take as much as 8 hours in a typical CRM. And in fact, that's what we typically see in organizations. They're only able to get through 60 dials in a day. So a sales rep will probably take a week to do this, but it's 8 hours of time to convert 10 leads. And then you have to take into consideration the sales ready leads probably need 2 or 3 more touches just to get the appointment. So in other words, the call might go like this. Hello, I understand you filled out a web request form from our website. I wanted to talk to you about selling you computer hardware. Oh, listen, Larry, yes, we are interested. I can't talk right now. Could you call me next week and we can talk about it and then maybe set up an appointment? Okay, I'll call you next week. So, and again, to get that person back on the phone may take a couple attempts. Hopefully I can set an exact time to get them on the phone. But that could easily take another 12 dials or another hour of time to get those sales ready leads to actually get the appointment. So we're talking, and then that's not to even speak of the nurtured leads may require as many as 6 touches over time to convert the appointment. Let me tell you about the nurtured leads and the most successful companies that I've observed. We will get probably a dozen phone calls this month from customers who say, hey, we just had a call. I just closed one of the biggest deals in my career from one of your leads. I got the lead a year ago, and it's just like you said. I had to nurture this lead for about 6 or 7 months before I finally got the appointment. When I got the appointment, I was the only man standing, helped them put the RFP together, pretty much had the deal closed before they even talked to my competitors. In fact, the customer asked me what other companies they should contact to get bids from, assuring my customer that they would get the deal. So it really just points to the fact that nurtured leads are the most ignored, abused opportunities that there are. So how much time is it going to take to get these 2.5 or 3 appointments per week? Remember, 60 dials could take 8 hours. That's just to get through 10 leads. Convert the sales-ready leads into appointments. That's probably another hour easy. You're looking at a total weekly requirement of 9 hours, basically using the current technology, which is a basic CRM. That's a lot of time. And when you look at it this way and take a step back and say, my God, how is my sales rep going to find an extra 9 hours a week, not to generate cold leads, but just to convert leads into appointments? Now, mind you, remember, this isn't doing networking or generating any of their own leads or pure cold calling. If it was pure cold calling, you're talking about even more time. And that's a challenge. And this is the key reason that most sales reps won't make goal, is that they simply don't allocate enough time. Finding an extra 9 hours a week, week after week after week, is really difficult to do. And the challenge is, if they only spend an average of 4.5 hours a week, well, that's going to go right back to the formula. And that's going to result in, I can tell you right now, it's going to result in $500,000 in sales versus $1 million in sales. So when you look at the numbers, it's hard to argue with the numbers, but it basically boils down to time management and a numbers game. So what we really need to do is reduce the time it takes to cold call. When I say cold call, I mean prospect, convert leads into appointments, not cold calling. One of the suggestions is an inside sales team. And in fact, the top companies that we deal with, when I say that, these are the most profitable, year in and year out, whether the economy's bad or good, these are the ones that always perform well. Most of those rock stars, as I call them, the top 100 or 200 or so, have an inside sales team that's dedicated to supplementing the appointments for the outside sales team. Instead of a dedicated inside sales team, a lot of companies are using outsourced lead nurturing. We've identified some boutique shops with maybe 10 or 20 employees that are very good at converting leads into appointments, lead nurturing. There's a lot of companies out there. The reason there's a lot of companies out there is because some companies have figured out that it takes 9 hours a week to set the number of appointments that they need for their sales reps to hit their goal. Email programs can help. Are they the be-all and end-all? Absolutely not. There are some appointments that you can get only by cold calling. But emails can definitely help. I have some clients that will basically send out an email asking for the appointment, and they've come out with some strategies that actually work. Again, there's a new breed of CRM that can help your sales reps get through that 9 hours of work and reduce it to 2 hours of work. That's a huge increase. There's CRMs. They identify themselves as CRMs, but they'll tell you they're fast CRMs, inside sales CRMs, specifically designed for cold calling and prospecting. You should definitely take a look at those. Again, we're not the only one, but that kind of reduction in the amount of time that it takes to follow up on leads is a serious advantage. The other thing that you can do is schedule cold calling sessions once a week, maybe for 3 to 4 hours a week. Everybody gets together and does cold calling sessions. This way, as a sales manager or as a salesperson, you're sure that you get that extra time in to get those extra appointments that you need to make goal. There's another thing called engagement marketing, and it was pioneered by a woman by the name of Gail Goodman, who is the CEO of Constant Contact, which is an email marketing company. She's responsible in the last 5 or 6 years from taking Constant Contact from about 50,000 customers to 500,000 customers. Whenever I see results like that, I always sort of stop and listen and read whatever they've written. She's written a book on engagement marketing, which I think is genius. We've done an adaptation of that called B2B engagement marketing, and it's definitely something that can help lead conversion. If you're interested in that article, just email me, Larry at InsightPRM.com, and just put B2B engagement marketing in the subject matter, and I'll be happy to send you that article. So there's a lot of things that you can do to actively control or help your sales reps set more appointments. It's really that easy. We've worked with companies utilizing the sales formula and basically showing them step by step what they need to do on a weekly basis. So in our case, we need to go from, remember, about 8 appointments per month to 11 appointments per month to get a 33% increase in that salesperson's sales. And it really is that easy. If you get them on the stage, 3 more times a week, that's a month, that's an extra 30 appointments a year. So it is significant, and it definitely works. So thank you very much. I hope this was helpful. My name again is Larry at InsightPRM. And be sure to check out our websites, movemybiz.com and InsightPRM. We've got some really cool stuff going on. We have a series of webinars on sales and selling. Any suggestions that you have are very welcome. We have demos coming up where you can actually see our CRM if you like to do that. And we're here just to let you know the thing that fires us up here at Wendover, which is the overriding company, is helping our customers succeed. We get more fired up when a customer calls us up and tells us that they closed one of the biggest deals of their career than when we close one of our biggest deals of our career. But we're here to help. We're really invested in helping you get to the next level. So thank you very much. We really appreciate your time.